I think we all know that the enduring definition of an expert is anyone who's flown in from out of town. And so I'm very happy to be here with an esteemed group. I know there's some folks from Europe as well. We're going to be talking today about the not-so-quiet revolution in digital payments. If you read the Wall Street Journal, if you read something called TechCrunch, if you read really anything, even the New York Times these days, just about every day you're learning something new about how we pay for things, where we pay for things, when we pay for things. There is more venture capital now going into payments than ever before. There are more companies going public in payments than ever before. There are more partnerships going on between intermediaries, banks, payment networks, and all sorts of other players in the space than ever before. So we're going to explore this a little bit today. I know you had an earlier speaker, Mark, before lunch, who talked a little bit about the mobile wallet and everything's going mobile and everything's going digital. So we'll build off of that a little bit in our discussion, and then do a case study about my company, Marqeta, our partnership with TriMet here in Portland. This is our launch market for our business. And just a little bit of a case study into how some of these changes can actually show up in real daily value propositions for merchants, for consumers, for marketers, and the impact of digital technology on the overall payments space. So the way it'll work is we're going to do a quick top 10 of some of the data. It's mind-blowing data. It's really interesting stuff you wouldn't think about. We'll talk about some of the big changes afoot in where, when, how, and who we pay. We'll do our little case study, and we'll end with a quick conversation around what to watch and who to watch in the space. We'll get to see some fun videos, too. So, our top 10. Let's see if we can get this started. 3, the number of transactions per second that eBay processes from a mobile device. 20%, the breakage on Groupon, the amount of Groupons in dollars that are actually never spent. 15%, the percentage of cashless transactions taking place with a mobile app. And 60% is the percentage of transactions that Visa says are made without cash or paper checks. So I know Mark talked a little bit about, going all the way back to things like precious metals, things like gold and silver, when you came in and you handed your bag over and you got a good or service, right? So then it turned into credit cash, then it turned into credit cards. Pretty much cashless is the way it's going. $1.55 trillion, the amount that Forrester predicts will be spent on cross-channel commerce, or researching online and then going into a store and buying. $14 billion, the amount that Booz & Company estimates that U.S. social commerce revenues will rise to in 2015. We think this is actually a little bit low. This is the idea of my friend tells me to buy something, so I go buy it. There's a company now in New York, a friend of mine started, called Style Owner. She used to be the president of J. Crew. Now you can basically go and curate your own style from all of the favorite merchants that you like on your Facebook page. I can then go see your style, if I like how you dress, and purchase something right there from you through to J. Crew, to Saks Fifth Avenue, to Nordstrom, to whoever it might be. You get 10% of the deal. It'll be coming out soon. It's pretty interesting stuff. $700 million, the amount that banks collected in a single quarter after they increased overdraft fees in 2011. You probably saw the Bank of America fiasco where they tried to charge, I think it was $5 for debit card transactions, and then they went back because of the backlash. This is one of my favorites, 85%, the amount of household spend controlled by moms. You're starting to see some of the key players in this space. 40%, the amount that phone carriers like T-Mobile, like AT&T, like Verizon, are charging merchants to run payments through their network. Pretty expensive. And the number one, I found a new number one backstage, so I'll share that with you too, but the existing number one is Starbucks reloadable cards. Anybody have one of those, right? Looks like this in your pocket. 150,000 new card activations a day, right? Outpaced, eclipsed everything they'd ever done in loyalty ever before. And the number one stat that I think is mind-blowing, I just read it, there was an HBR article that came out this week, was about Amazon.com, right? So we all remember the jokes, Amazon.org, way back when they were getting started and they couldn't make a profit. Market cap today, any guesses on what the market cap might be for Amazon.com? Anybody know? $20 billion? Anybody think higher? 40? $100 billion. To get a market cap, just to give you a sense of $100 billion in retail, you'd have to put Target, Best Buy, Staples, Nordstrom, Macy's, JCPenney, and Kohl's together to get $100 billion of market cap, all going through Amazon.com. So we start to see some of the players here. We see the banks, we see the payment networks, you see some of the innovators like Starbucks and Groupon, and you see probably the most influential decision maker in this entire group. Any guesses? The moms. Everyone is going after the moms. So we'll talk about that in a moment. So there are things going on in where we pay. We talked about that a moment ago with the mobile. Things going on in who we pay, social commerce, all of the intermediaries that are getting into the mix. How we pay. You could pay with your Square reader. You can pay with your phone. You can pay with a card. There was we worked with a gentleman who had a business called Pay by Touch. You can pay with your fingerprint. And when we pay. And we're going to do a quick case study before we finish here on when we pay. That's, I think, one of the more interesting things that's going on today in digital payments. So if we could play the first video. How many people have seen this ad before? If you were in a New York taxi anytime in the last month, you saw it about 10 times in a 2-block trip. I'm looking forward to the video of George Costanza actually trying to get through airport security or use his wallet, use his phone as his wallet, and of course there's no battery on the phone, and all of a sudden he's naked again in New York, lost as he was before. If we could see the second video, please. Thank you. Just to give you a sense as to what's going on in payments today. This is ISIS. ISIS is a collection of companies, including most of the major cell phone networks, most of the major payment networks. To give you a sense as to what's coming. So in that little video and in the George Costanza video, we saw a lot of things going on. We saw people actually paying with their phone. We saw a loyalty point being accrued. We saw a discount being offered and served up in a mobile fashion as somebody walked by the store where that discount was available to her. Right? So all of those things are now starting to converge, and you're starting to see a lot of these folks offer up these grand visions. But let's do a quick survey here. Before today, how many people had heard of Google Wallet? Great, I'm going to say about 60%. Before today, how many people actually have used Google Wallet to make a purchase? She is the only person in the room because she probably has the right phone, the only phone that accepts the Google Wallet today. And if you saw the Wall Street Journal article last week about Verizon and Google, they are now no longer, Verizon is not going to be in their next Android phones, enabling near-field communications, which is shortened as NFC, for the Google Wallet. In other words, the war is on. Just because Google's got this great idea on this great NFC technology and this great product, they're being blocked now by the cell phone manufacturers or the cell phone networks. Verizon's going to be offering that soon. Guess who else has an interesting thing to say about who gets to use what device for payments? We haven't talked about this at all. I don't know if this came up earlier today. It's Apple. 200 million credit cards accounts through iTunes, right? A captive audience, a captive device. No one said anything from Apple nobody from Apple has said anything about when NFC will be enabled, when their wallet function will be enabled, but you've got to believe that it's coming. So the sands are shifting, the players are shifting. Before, where the banks held all the power or the payment networks held all the power, all of that is kind of getting tossed up in the air, and we're starting to see how some of it might come down. None of these products is out in the market yet, except for Google Wallet, and again, as you can see, it's just getting started. So I wanted to talk a little bit about when we pay. Talked about where, we talked about who, we talked about how. I want to talk a little bit about when we pay. If you think of the middle bar here and the intersection of these two graphs, these two lines, that's the moment of transaction. That's when you pass your gold bullion over the counter, somebody gives you a product of some kind or another. That's the moment of transaction. For the longest time, since 1959, American Express introduced the first plastic credit card, it's all been about post-transaction payment, right? I'm not going to pay you today. I'm going to pay you tomorrow or next month or next week. And you can see we've developed somewhat of a national culture around taking goods today, paying later. And what you see, if you understand that the left side, the vertical axis, is all about the ROI for the consumer, it's negative, right? You pay later, you pay interest. You pay fees, right? You pay late charges. You pay finance charges. And you start to see some of the companies, so obviously the credit cards have been there for a long time. Bill Me Later, you probably are familiar with that one. Bill Float, friends of ours have started that, where basically if you can't pay your utility bills or you want a 30-day loan for $200 or $400 or $500, it is expensive. It is very expensive. However, a company called Green Dot started not too long ago. They recently went public. Basically allowed the unbanked and underbanked to pre-load a payments card, right? Some type of open loop, Visa, MasterCard, I think they use MasterCard. And they'll put $1,000 on it, and Green Dot will take $5 because that's their business model, and then you do a balance check and they'll take another $1, and then you do a transaction, it'll take 25 cents or whatever it might be. So now all of a sudden, you can take your cash, you can commit it, right, to a payments card of one kind or another, and it costs a little bit of money. Starbucks, you can see I'm a fan of the Starbucks business model. We'll have the coffee wars aside, but at least of the business model. Starbucks came up with a brilliant idea. They said, look, we're fighting tooth and nail, day in and day out, just to get a customer to walk through the door. And then the customer walks through the door, how much can they buy? They're not going to buy 2 coffees because they're really only there because they're thirsty. They're going to drink 1 coffee. Maybe they'll get a snack. Maybe we can sell them a book. Maybe we can sell them the mugs. You start to remember the last 10 years, all the different products that they started introducing because they have a customer. Let's sell them as much as we possibly can. Somebody figured out, well, what if instead of $4, we could sell them $40 worth of coffee? What if instead of 1 coffee, we could sell them 8 coffees? We would just need a mechanism to sort that out and to organize that. And that's how they invented that prepaid card. So 150,000 activations a day, average load, $50. So if you think about the cost of a cup of coffee, even at Starbucks, the average cost of coffee is around $2. 25 visits I'm prepaying for. And at least with Starbucks, you get a little bit of a reward. That's why it's a slight better than 0 ROI. You get some type, I think on your birthday you get a free cup of coffee. After 30 points, you get a gold card that they'll send you. I'm sure some folks in here have a gold card, right? So it's interesting. All of a sudden, people are crossing the street to go to Starbucks because they've already put their money there. They're prepaying. And that's kind of where this conversation is going to go. Groupon leveraged that as well. You want to pay me up front, $25, we'll make it worth $50. You want to pay me up front, $50, we'll make it worth $100. Right? And then all 400 or 500 daily deal sites spawn after that. Marqeta is trying to do the same thing. We've basically built a technology where this one card, this is the Marqeta card, has the same kind of relationship as you might have with Starbucks at as many merchants as you want at all your favorite merchants, your salon, your coffee shop, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But that's essentially the prepaid space moving away from post-transaction payment to pre-transaction payment. And you can start to see that the ROI for a consumer who can afford to pre-spend $1,000 on groceries or to pre-spend $500 in a particular month on retail apparel or to look at their budget through any of the various applications that are available today, like Mint, like Adapt to see, okay, where is my money going? Well, if I'm spending $1,000 a month on grocery, what if I committed to one merchant instead of the 3 or 4 that I might happen to go to? $900 at the beginning of the month, and they made it worth $1,000. Why would I not do that, right? That's a nice little ROI on my money. So the prepaid movement, you may recall our good friend Wimpy from Popeye, right? I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for 2 hamburgers today, has now been turned on its head. I'll gladly pay you for 1 hamburger today because you need the cash, but you got to make it worth 2 tomorrow. So consumers are most loyal to their own money is what we're finding, right? The idea of a discount, the idea of a deal or an offer that requires you to go to the store to get that offer, right? This is the whole online to offline commerce conversation, is just a condition. It's a conditional offer. It's an option. It's really an option. I may go in, I may not go in, right? Is 15% really going to drive me into the store? Some of us, yes. Some of us, no. Depends on the day, depends on where I might be. But if I've already prepaid you $50 worth of coffee, well, that's where I got to spend it. I mean, I walked off the plane today, I flew in this morning, and I've got like $80 of pizza schmizza on this card that I paid $60 for, and I'm starting to think, okay, how can I get to a schmizza location to have lunch rather than spend it somewhere else, because I've already invested the money. So the money's kind of burning a hole in your pocket, right? Pre-spending allows merchants to guarantee multiple transactions with one visit. We talked about that a moment ago. And prepayment platforms capture the data for long-term consumer engagement. This is the really important piece here. If you read a lot of these articles on TechCrunch or on the Wall Street Journal, they have a phrase that they like to use which is called closing the redemption loop. So I look on Yelp for a review for my favorite restaurant in a particular neighborhood I might be going to. I say, thank you, Yelp. I got 5 stars in this restaurant. Goodbye, Yelp. Now I'm going to go to the restaurant and pay the restaurant. Yelp's out of the picture. What Yelp is trying to do, and what all of these review organizations and really everybody in the space is trying to do, is close that redemption loop so that I have to go through Yelp to pay for my dinner. They get a piece of it, the restaurant gets a piece of it, and all of a sudden now we have a closed redemption loop, which means that it really is all about the transaction, right? Data is interesting. It's important for me. Information is important for me. But if a provider of that data can't actually get me to do something with it, we don't have a closed redemption loop, and they can't actually rely on 100% integrity of that data. So when we talk about prepaid, and when we talk about Starbucks' genius in this innovation, and Amazon with their Prime product, it's all about closing that redemption loop, and it's all about being able to sit in the middle of that transaction. So what we saw, let's do our little case study about Marqeta and what we tried to do. We saw the pre-spending phenomenon at Starbucks. We saw what was going on with daily deals. We understood what was happening in-store experience. A lot of us come out of the retail space. And we said, there's got to be something here. Starbucks, they spent millions and millions of dollars building this technology, and they built it integrated back with their point of sale. Right? Asking a retailer to do anything these days is tough. Asking them to change their point of sale is basically you're dead in the water. Right? Because it's software, it's hardware, it's an upfront expense. It's very difficult. So what we did is we moved everything away from the point of sale, partnered with the Discover card to create a payments network where we could get that communication flow, right, and put everything into a processing center on the other side of the payments network. Starbucks is on this side of the payments network, right integrated with the POS system. We moved everything to the other side of the network, partnered with that network, and now we get all the data and we sit in the middle. So how does it actually work? So with Marqeta, consumers pre-spend for the stuff that they really want. I know I'm going to grocery. I know I'm going to spend money on gas every month. I know I'm going to go to 2 or 3 restaurants in a given month. I pre-spend at the merchants that I really want to pre-spend at, that I know I'm going to try for the first time, or I might go for a second or third visit. And in exchange for that pre-spending commitment, I get some type of reward, right? Whether it's a 5% ROI or a 10% ROI. Grocery and gas can probably afford a lot lower. Retail apparel, Gap's giving away 40%. I mean, most of us don't buy from Gap unless we're getting 40% or more discount these days, right? They've discounted themselves into a corner. And because we sit on the other side of the payments network, because we sit on the back of Discover, we can put everything on one card. I'm not going to get into too many of the technical details around how this all works, but we're able to actually have as many merchants as you want, as many Starbucks-like prepaid relationships as you want, with as many merchants as you like, all in one card. So from a consumer point of view, it allows you to demonstrate loyalty before you even walk in the door. We've built this idea of shop and give, so you can have some of your extra money going into a charity of your choice. There's the same recommendation engine and events engine and social media engine that sits on top of all of that. For merchants, what's great is we've actually closed the redemption loop so they can mine as much data as they want. We're able to capture all of that transactional data that flows through the system, and for the first time ever, at least without having to spend $250,000 a quarter on a data service plan from Amex or one of the Medallia or some of these other people, I can say to a merchant, listen, Susie spent $24 with you last month, but she also spent $200 at your competitors. How about providing her with a little bit of an offer to spend more of that wallet share with you next month, right? So if she's at 10% of her category share, Mr. and Mrs. Restaurant owner, now, how do we get her to 20%? How do we get her to 30%? Let's send her an offer that says pre-spend 100 here. We'll make it worth 120. We'll make it worth 130. We'll make it worth 110, whatever the merchant desires. So that's the real opportunity for the merchant from a digital point of view is how do I capture wallet share before the consumer decides where to go in that particular category of spend? The idea being that I'm going to get them back more. I'm going to have a higher customer lifetime value. I'm going to have more opportunities to share the greatness of my product, the greatness of my service with this customer. So how does it work? The consumer registers and signs up for Marqeta Card. You can do that today at marqeta.com. It's live. It's up and running. We launched in Portland, as I mentioned. You choose the offers that you want from the merchants that you want, and you prepay. You prepay with a debit card, you prepay with your bank account, or you prepay with a credit card, and you can, yes, you can double dip. So you get points from the credit card and the extra money from Marqeta and these merchants. You then go, you load the dollars into a selected merchant account. So we have all the accounting engine sitting right there in the back. It's all on a website or your mobile app. You then go spend, right? So I may have $80 at Pizza Schmizza. I paid $60 for it. I go, I swipe my Marqeta card, and it just deducts the balance just like you would any other debit card. And then Pizza Schmizza loads the extra money on, and it's all processed automatically. Nobody has to do much thinking about it, and the reporting is there. So from a payments point of view, what does it look like? You shouldn't be able to see the white, but that's okay. I'll read it for you. So there's a payments processing platform on the bottom of the pyramid. There's a multi-merchant kind of closed-loop relationship capability, as we talked about. And then, everything else on top of that is essentially what you see in a lot of different offers. So you see Groupon having Groupon Now, right, where they can ping you with an offer that's available right now if you go to that restaurant right now. And that's been really great for restaurants because they're able to actually manage their yield. They'll do an offer Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but that offer is no longer good on Thursday when people are actually coming naturally. So all of that stuff is built into the platform. The idea basically is, how do you empower merchants to use a consumer engagement platform that actually closes the redemption loop? Right? How do you get loyalty in the door before you have to ask somebody to carry a punch card or carry a loyalty card, or even if it's still on the phone? There's a lot of companies out there today that have loyalty cards on the phone, which is great. However, you only get a point once you spend the money. So it's on the other side of that graph that we showed, not prepaid. And the basic idea is, how do you create one-to-one marketing and consumer engagement with your customers? Right? That is the holy grail, which is how do I find out where that mom is spending money, where she wants to spend money, how she wants to engage with me, and how do I create a relationship there? Because if you think about Amazon.com and all that's available to them to have that relationship, right? The one thing they don't have is the smiling face. The one thing they don't have is the conversation about, how are the kids doing? I bet they're working on it. I'm sure they are. But that's the one advantage local retailers are going to still have. And now, with us and with a lot of other players that are out there, they can actually afford to engage in this way with their consumers and leverage digital technology. So a quick conversation around TriMet. I don't know how many, let's just a quick show of hands. Has anybody seen this out there? How many people have seen this kind of ad driving around, right? So the basic idea is we went to TriMet when we came to Portland. We met some really nice people at Liquid, who's one of the sponsors here. We met a number of other friends of theirs, and they said, we told them about what we were trying to do. We told them that we were launching in Portland, and they said, you need to talk to TriMet. TriMet is really one of the great brands of Portland. A lot of people ride TriMet. So we went and talked to them. We talked to Drew Blevins, who was here earlier this morning, and told him a little bit about what we were trying to do, and wouldn't it be great if people could prepay for transit and get more. So he said, wow, that's a really big idea. Let's keep talking about that. There are certain regulatory issues there. But in the meantime, we're trying to provide more value to our riders. This is his kind of raison d'etre, right? That's what he's trying to think about every day. How do I provide more value to our riders? Well, if we give you some of our media on these buses and trains and all these various places, then at the very least we can get the word out about what you're trying to do. Then you can use our brand, TriMet's brand name, to go get a bunch of merchants to give away money to our riders. So we get benefit because we get to kind of be the patriarch of giving money to our riders. The merchants are happy because for $5 or $10, they're able to actually get someone to walk through their door. And Marqeta's happy because what we get to do is say, listen, take your TriMet ticket, come to marqeta.com/TriMet, choose an offer from any one of these various merchants that are participating, and TriMet's going to make it worth more. Excuse me, and the merchant's going to make it worth more, only for putting in your TriMet ticket. So it's a really successful program. It's going to run through the end of December, and it's just one example of how you use digital media and how you use digital marketing to bring together not just the merchant and the consumer, but the merchant, the consumer, and various other players in the marketplace. So in sum, who and what to watch. Mobile will come, but slowly, right? It's great to think that the folks at a digital marketing conference are going to be the first ones off the boat to start paying with their phone, and you can do that today with Starbucks. But think of the millions and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people in this country that are still getting used to credit cards. When are they going to be excited about using their phones? Locus of power is shifting. Banks will have to scramble to participate. That's what ISIS is all about. And acquisitions are going on everywhere because if you have money and you don't have time to actually develop the technology yourself, there are enough people out there, there have been enough funded companies from the venture community to actually to acquire them. And for merchants, better information to the consumer is going to mean lower margins. There's no two ways about it. How do you outpace that? It's about recognition, relevance, and actual value. Finally, who to watch? I said before, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook. Right? These guys control the channel, they control the consumer conversation. Eventually, they'll backfill with what they need to control the transaction. Thank you very much.
All right, we've got a couple of questions here. One of them is that carrier 40% limiting payment innovation?
A lot of people who have to pay it would probably say yes. Right? I would think that they're there now, right? It's a very high price to pay, but there's going to be competition. And like we all know, over time, that's going to reduce prices. But for now, they're holding the cards when it comes to that kind of payment.
Does Marqeta share customer data with merchants, or is that data property of Marqeta a la Apple?
Right. We actually do share it with merchants. We have to be very careful. We're a bank-regulated company, so we keep it under the privacy laws. Nobody ever sees a name. It's all kind of unique identifiers with cards and X'd out and that type of thing. But yeah, the idea is to get merchants to engage in the platform and just the way we talked about it.
Does Marqeta Card also have a mobile app?
Yes, of course. We do have a mobile app. It's built, it's there, it's ready to go. You can't redeem yet with it, but that's simply because only Starbucks, Target, and one other merchants in the country actually has that technology to redeem.
And how many merchants does Marqeta have lined up?
So we have about 75 merchants so far. About a third of those are in the Portland area. We encourage you to sign up for a card, again, marqeta.com. And inside your account area, you can recommend a local merchant, and we'll go after them, and we'll talk to them, and we'll let them know that somebody wants to prepay at them, and that's how the idea is. We're trying to build a two-sided business. Merchants want to see, well, what consumers do you have? Consumers want to say, what merchants do you have? And you kind of got to, get everybody to the table before you can start transacting.
And if I understand it correctly, we're the guinea pigs here in Portland right now?
Well, that's one way to put it. That's one way to put it. Actually, we tested pretty significantly in our own backyards back in the Bay Area before we went live. In Portland, we went live on November 1st, and it's been great. It's been really great. We've got a very lonely customer service representative sitting there in our office because it seems to be clear, it seems to be working, but We're very, very excited. We brought in a lot of local Portland help and staff. We've hired local staff. We've hired local media agencies. We hired Liquid, as I mentioned before. We hired an agency called the Dojo Agency, and both folks have been fabulous. They've been wonderful for us, and it's my 10th trip here in the last 3 months, so it's wonderful to be here.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank you very
everything.
much. Thank you very much.